Well, she's been a couple days, and honestly, I haven't really done a whole lot. Motor and transmission still sitting together, and I just kind of pushed it back over the car actually because I didn't want to have it sitting on the floor. But today, oh, it's exciting times. We're going to go ahead and rip apart this front end. I did get the bigger springs. I know that's going to be a little controversial. Take that off, take the springs out. Clean everything around here, wipe everything down, scuff it. I might just repaint these rails and stuff while I'm at it, take all the, all the junk out. Make it look nice and pretty. While that's drying, we'll then take the motor and transmission apart and kind of keep going on. Now, what are the next steps? Oh, baby. Brand frickin' new. Now, honestly, I got a bunch of stuff in the other garage. I'll show you here. I had no motivation, even though I had a pile of parts. Now I thought, what the hell's the matter with me? Well, I tell you, going across the border to get parts, the first time I ever done that, I thought, oh, this would be a good idea. It's a big order, all the money in the world. I better make sure I go get it myself and make sure it's done right, see if I can save a few bucks, because all the shipping, frickin' nightmare. I've never had an order this big in my entire life. This cost more than that car and the other car and that stupid convertible I bought. But we go down there, we load up, man, US border guy, great. Package guy, great. Coming back, the Canadian border guy going through, great. The cashier border guy, man. I guess I had said a few wrong words and he didn't appreciate that. When I went through, they asked me what the value was. I just kind of quickly added up in my head, gave an estimated number, wrote down a piece of paper, went in with my receipt to pay my tax, and I was out by $300. Well, you thought I was trying to smuggle I don't know what in. Grilled, threatened to take all my stuff, which, man, that plays with a guy's brain. When you have all this junk, which you cannot really afford, on your Visa card, and they threaten to take it away from you, that was not great. Paid, ripped the vehicle apart, threatened to flag on my account. First time doing that. I think it's the last. I think I'm paying a broker, even though it hurts me to do it. But we have almost everything. There's a couple of snafus. We have sheet metal intake. Man, that's cool. The EFI carburetors, or I guess they're not even called carburetors anymore, eh? The EFI pieces, the snipers, they actually showed up a day late. So I paid a guy today to go get them. So we got to do that. And the distributor to run this whole mess, because I got a ready-to-run plug-in to the sniper kit. I got to say, the Holly guys really taught me through this. So hopefully they were right in all of their mathematics. So it should control timing, do all sorts of stuff, run off the sniper kit, be like turn the key, brum, run. So I got to get that yet. This is the sniper in pump or in tank EFI kind of whole deal, which I actually ran this on my black car, so I know it's good. We got some old school valve covers, velocity stacks, because let's be honest, velocity stacks. These are fender well headers. In here's a bunch of miscellaneous fittings. All the transmission stuff, so we got bellhousing, clutch, all the fluid, man. So I went through American Powertrain. Those guys give you every single thing, nut and bolt, cross member, fluid, break-in fluid, shift boot, shift, like everything. It's got reverse and neutral safety and all that on it. That's the ticket. The only thing that was backordered on that was the clutch. So I got an all-in-one clutch and master type deal. That's going to be here in a few days or a week or so. And the only snafu we ran into, I ordered wheels, and there was only one. So I got a set of Rocket Racing, man, there's stuff freaking everywhere, Rocket Racing wheels, and as cast. They said they had two, I got one sent, and then it turns out they only had one. So that's the way it went. But called Holly, man, they made up for it big time. So they comped those and they gave me another set, El Fribo, to make up for it, of much nicer wheels. Too nice for this junk, but whatever. That's all coming next week. And then this is the big dollar. I've never had anything nice before. I said I wanted it. ponied it up, went for it. Brand new. It's a TKX, so it's a 5-speed. So it's close ratio of 4 with 0.68 overdrive, 5th gear. So it should be great on the highway. Lots of power to cruise around. We should have a blast. And I still am waiting on the rear end because I have to custom make that from Quick, I think. And that'll be here in a couple of weeks. So hopefully everything will go well. I'm a little nervous because it's so much money I've invested in one car. I have doubled the amount of money I have in this car in one purchase, or whatever you want to call it. 3 places, but one main purchase, which is bananas to me. I could have bought a wrecking yard full of cars. So I better freaking love this thing. Anyway, so we're going to do that. We're going to do the front end, get it all painted up, make it look nice. I then read the bell housing. You have to use a dial indicator and make sure it's all good. You may have to get offset dowels, I guess, because you only have 5 thou or something like that out of round or something for the transmission. So that's what we want for warranty, and then to make sure it's a pop out of gear and stuff. So we'll see what we can do there. I'm not a real fine tuning kind of guy, but at this point we'll make that happen. I'd like to get the motor and transmission together. Hope we'll get it all done this video or next. Get it slid in there, get the mount, get all that dialed. I like to start putting it back together right away because I do not like this thing apart because I just spent so much time and money putting it together, and we'll kind of carry on. The rear end is going to be the hiccup. That will then be drive shaft and all those little kind of things. But we're just at the very beginning of April. I'm going to jam as much as I can this thing because I'd like to have it done for near the end of April when there's no more snow, and pound miles on this thing because I have to. It's all I can afford to do. But I'll get this moved out of the way and we'll start taking this all apart. Actually, I want to build a tool for this because this is driving me nuts. I've been doing this front end. I'll show you that real quick. So here's what I'm building. We're building a deep socket. Now, this is the little tool, which I've used many times, just for collapsing the spring. So we're going to run this all-thread rod through the coil spring pocket and up through the shock mount. This bottom bar will grab the lower control arm. You then just simply run down this nut and it will compress the spring, take everything apart, and then loosen it. Now the problem is you typically have to run the nut down with a wrench because obviously the more the nut goes down on the all-thread rod, you just run out of socket. I got tired of doing that. So I took a 3/4 socket deep, cut it in half, and I'm going to weld one side on this piece of scrap pipe. I was going to use this really thick wall stuff, but I was like, you know what? That's too good. We'll keep that. This was outside rusting. And then we'll put the hammer side on there and essentially make ourselves a really long socket. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect. Even if this does break, this is in no way affecting the clamping of the situation. So I don't feel like it has to be overly strong. It's literally just going to be a wrench. So I'll get this welded back together, or welded together, and we'll see exactly if it works out or not. I have all the confidence in the world in myself. It's going to be wobbly and all that stuff, but it should make my life 1,000 times easier. We'll, I guess I got this thing jacked up and on jack stands, do a little screwing around. So I'll see you then. So let's do this. I already have the other side. I have the other side apart. This is the piece we made. It's definitely on the long side. This is just a full 3-foot stick ball thread. I could cut it off and do whatever, but you never know, you got a clamp. Now I have the lower control arms really bolt to the cross member already off, or loose I should say. So what's happening now, this all thread is collapsing the spring. So we're just going to go ahead and decollapse it. Now when you're doing this, it's very simple, very dangerous if anything goes wrong, but you want to be careful. Now what I have done in the past, and I'll do it when I put it together, you put a long bolt in so you have some wiggle room. You can put a floor jack under it, but this is fine. You just want to make sure when you're loosening it that the all thread isn't unthreading out from the bottom, which I double nut it to avoid that exact situation. Let's go ahead and do this real quick. Slowly but surely. Oh, it's in camera there. Let's dropping down. They're slowly releasing the tension on the spring until eventually this will be finger tight, and then we can just pull the spring out, which is great. So maybe we'll just skip to that part. So at this point, everything is finger tight. I'm going to take the bottom of the puller off. We'll just take it apart real quick and just store it. So now there should be, I mean, I'm sure there's some tension on the spring, but not enough to kill you. And let's be honest, that's the wrong amount. Death by spring, I don't want to end up like a meme on YouTube or nothing. So there we go, fell right out. Problem solved. Safely, and we're good. Now, let's go over here. So we already have the other side out. Now the factory spring is over here. This is the new big block spring. Now, I don't know how it'll show up on camera, but obviously this one is longer. So what I did in the past on my 55 Chevrolet was I cut these springs to match the height of the other one. You're like, well, what the hell? Why are you changing springs? Spring rate is what we're really changing. So if you can see or not, but this one here is, oh, it's quite a bit thicker than this jobby. So I'm probably gonna, line these up. We'll trim that one right about there. So we'll call it a coil and a half off. So it'll go together. Now this one, the second there's any amount of weight, it will compress. This one, she won't. So we'll probably also take out this bump stop to give it as much upward travel as we possibly can and put those in. Now, before we do that, I got the gun washout. I was trying to clean some of this off. It was not happening. So I think we're gonna do is just scuff it. I'm gonna take the fuel line off, the brake line off, any electrical I have off. I'll just scuff everything down. We'll shoot it with some, Windex, blow it all off. It's just body dust, most of it. And then I'm just gonna paint everything. Then I'm gonna go in for supper. Then we'll come back out. We'll jam those new springs in. Hopefully it'll go easily. As I recall, it was a bit of a bear, but hey, looking cool, man. It's hard. We can do that, put that all together, put the front wheels back on, and then this thing it's back to being a roller, and it's kind of done again. I mean, really, it's fine now, but we could just put those springs in and probably pressure wash it, but I don't know. If this thing's gonna be nose high with no inner fenders, you're gonna see this, and I wanna make sure this looks good. So at the very least, the side of the rails look good. We'll paint all that stuff. We're going for the ridiculous look. You gotta have at least try to make it look nice. So that's the plan, and we'll go from there. So I'll probably bring it back when we're ready to paint. I don't think you need to see me sanding a frame horn for probably the third time on this car. Okay, so we got everything kind of stripped down. I just went over it with some like 400 to scuff it a little bit, but I mean, it is primer. It should be fine. I don't know. I think I might paint over some of this, the red bits, and I'm not a huge fan of this kind of goldy stuff showing. We'll see what I do. I did this side just real quick to see what it's gonna look like. I wiped it all down with thinner. I think we'll be okay. We're gonna get all under the hood done. Over here, we can do this at some other point. It's really irrelevant. No one's ever gonna see that. But, and same with up in here. I might sand this a little bit better and make that nice down the road. But for now, we're just gonna get kind of the firewall, the frame rails. Honestly, a lot of the suspension, that's all bare metal. I had wire wheeled and I never did anything with, so idiot. Now, let's fog this thing. Checking, looking good. Action. So it's actually the next day. I struggled to get these big Horkin springs in there, and I had memories back of when I did it to my 55, and it was a friggin' nightmare, and it still was. We got them in there. There's zero suspension travel, but obviously there's no weight on it. We are on the bump stop, so it has lifted it. I think it'll probably keep that way. Hopefully I'll take it apart and cut another coil out or do some screwing around, but we'll deal with that down the road. Plus, American roads are so nice to drive on, you don't even need suspension. Now, what we're doing today, well, for the rest of this video, yoink transmission off, so unbolt converter, transmission off, ring gear off. Then we have to dial indicate, which I've never done, but I've watched a couple videos on it. This here, bell housing. You want to make sure that this is, exactly centered to the crank, I guess for the pilot bearing for the input shaft on the transmission. So Tremec says you can only have 7 thou or something like that out. I guess there's some big Horkin bearing on the input shaft that's tight tolerance and it doesn't want any issues. So to avoid the warranty, obviously it'll affect high RPM shifting, all that sort of stuff, which, let's be honest, this thing's a race car. But at this point, we might as well do it now. If it is out to lunch, which I'm hoping it isn't, we need to order some offset dowel pins. Now, one more thing. A few people have mentioned, and I do agree, this is not a SFI approved scatter shield. This is just like an aluminum kind of dealy bell housing. And I fought that out big time when I was buying all this stuff, but a bell housing was A, out of stock, and B, like $1,200 for something I'm really not going to beat on. Everybody I talked to, including the guys over at American there, they didn't think there was any issues. And here's what we're putting in this thing. It's a billet SFI made in America flywheel. Everything's ARP hardware. It's going to be a McLeod. It's called a dual friction clutch. I don't know what the hell that means. I got to open it up. So it's all top of the line parts. And honestly, if I decide to really beat on this thing and do any sort of racing, which I kind of don't think I'll do, but you never know, we could either A, change the bell housing, which is a hassle, but let's be honest, I like to be hard on myself for no reason anyways. It's a weekend job. Or I think they sell blankets you can put on it. But I think for what this is going to be, just a fun driver. I mean, look at all those Camaros and stuff like that. 500-600 horse LS with a 6-speed. They don't have SFI stuff. This is what they have, and it's fine. Not to mention, I've talked to a few like hardcore drag racers, and they're big believers in. I mean, yes, obviously, scatter shield, but if you put quality parts in there and you maintain them, you should be okay. So, my feet are hoping so, and shins and knees. Let's get this thing down. Well, before I do, I got to unbolt the torque converter. That's why I had it up. I had it all ready to go, and I was talking to Mert last night, and then I lost interest. But he's coming home in a few days, so he'll be in. He'll be in the shop. And he's threatening to start his own YouTube channel, but he's pretty lazy, that guy. I don't think he'll do it. So I'm going to get set up here real quick. Hopefully I'm somewhat in frame. We'll probably get a little closer when I'm kind of showing everything, if I figure it out. So I put the new flywheel on. I just used the existing bolts from the ring gear, which is wrong. But the ARP stuff, I'm not putting it just yet. Plus it's like 12 point, and I don't have a 12-point socket because I'm a hack. So that's on there, just kind of nothing's torqued. The idea is we're going to put this bell housing on. Something like that. Now, the bell housing is aligned. What is going on here? With these dowels, which this one is fighting me. And that's what kind of centers it. The bolts obviously have a bunch of slop in them, whereas the dowels are not so much. So this is a bunch of paint in it or something. So I'm going to put this on real quick just with a couple of bolts to hold it flush. You want to make sure obviously there's nothing in the the bell housing to the back of the block, because if it goes on, sorry, just like a 16th of an inch here makes a big difference down here, you know what I mean? So we'll get this kind of dialed on there, which is it's going to be a press fit. And put a couple bolts in just to kind of hold it. And then I'll try and figure out a dial indicator setup. And what we're going to end up doing is mount a magnet with a little arm for the dial indicator on the flywheel. The dial indicator will be on the center hole here. And as you crank the motor over, it should, in theory, spin around and let us know if we're out of round. So I'll see what happens. The parts store is open for a few more hours. I don't know if they're going to have offset dowels. I never, ever in my life needed them, but I've also never, ever in my life bought anything that's expensive. So they go hand in hand. Well, wouldn't you know, a snafu. I'm going to show you what I did here. We'll run through it real quick, and then I'm going to complain a little bit. So if you want to fast forward the complaining, feel free to. But so we got our bell housing on. I have my dial indicator in there, and just for a quick EG, we are zeroed out right at the 12 o'clock position. Now what you do is you go a quarter turn until you kind of figure out what the runout's going to be on this deal. So we go from 0, over here we're 10 thou, down here we're 28 thou, and over here we were 18. 28 and 18, yeah. Then, so this is all off the American Powertrain web or video. You subtract the little number from the big number. So obviously 0 and 28 were minus 28, and 10 and 18 were minus 8. So essentially, this bell housing is down and over. So we need to correct that. The allowable tolerance is 7 thou. So we're right on the cusp, side left and right at 8 thou. I mean, we could fudge it a little. But at this point, the up and down at 28 thou is way, way out to lunch. So what you have to do, essentially in this, I hope I'm saying this right because I've been, gobbledygook in my head, but we're 28 thou this way and we're 8 thou that way. So essentially the bell housing has to go up and over. A very small amount, but like just for exaggeration purposes. So what we have to do, because obviously if you go up, if you take one number away from there, you're adding it to there, so you cut your numbers in half. So 28 thou would be 14. We have to go basically straight up. And then 8, again, to cut that out, we kind of cut it in half. Now, they sell offset dowel pins. This is where the problem is. No one locally has them. They're not going to be here for 4 days on Amazon. They sell them in 4, 14, and 21 thou. So 14 is the number we need. And essentially, we'll be trying to almost put them in straight up. We'll put them in just a slight bit this way, but mostly upwards, which will center us this way and bring us a couple thou over. So I don't think you're going to ever get it 0. You can play with it and get pretty doggone close. Now, I will set up the camera and you can watch my struggle and failure and judge me in the comments, and maybe I'm editing this, I'll figure I did something wrong and it's just fine somehow. But otherwise, we're hosed. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I actually found this kind of interesting because I've never ever done it before, and we'll just do it again. I've already done it twice, we'll do it a third time just to make sure we get our numbers. So, set our dial indicator at the, I did pretty close to the 12 o'clock position. We zero it out. Now we're gonna give the motor a quarter of a turn, which this is a bit of a hassle doing the crane by myself. How do I do there, guys? A little bit more. Oh, gentle, gentle. What, did it not move? Or did it hit something there? Okay, I'm pretty close. So that gave me, second show my camera, 10 thou. I'm within my mark, pretty close. So I wrote 10. Now we'll do another quarter of a turn. Oh, that was a big one. What do we got there? I went a little too far. Oh, gentle. Yeah, we're pretty close. Showing up on camera there. 27, 28 thou. So that's still the same. It's always nice when you get the same numbers when you keep testing it, eh? Gentle, buddy, gentle. I went a little too far there. I've only done this 6 times with myself. Danny went out to get who knows what. We're close-ish just for, it was a little higher, but we're, well, whatever that is, 18, 19 thou. And we'll run her back to the 12 o'clock position. As long as that's still 0, you're getting there. You've done it, attempted anyways, to do it correctly. So there we go. We're back to 0. Just unplug this here real quick. So we're back there-ish. And we're ish zeroed out. So, I gotta double check, but the nice people at American Powertrain made a nice YouTube video about it. And essentially, whatever you're out, you cut in half. So we're 8 and 28. So we'll cut 28 in half, which is 14, which essentially if I put dowel pins in straight up and down, we would be dead center in the 12-6, but we'd still be 8 out in the 3, no, yeah, 12-6, 3-9. Mathematics, not for me. So we're kind of hosed for right now. I was really hoping this was going to kind of work out, or someone local will have the parts, but that is not the case for me. Such is life. So there's no point going any further on this. I'm still waiting on a little bit of stuff like the fuel injection. So it's kind of irrelevant. But I think we're going to go ahead and just kind of clean up in here. Leave that while we wait on parts. And we'll focus on the rest of the car. So we do have to redo the entire fuel system. So the tank has to come out, which means the rear end has to come out in these stupid wagons. We'll run the fuel line up. We'll do a little screwing around with that. Then we can kind of get to where we're going to be. Unfortunately, that's really going to put me out. I've ordered it, but I think I may have to go on maybe like a local Facebook group, see if anybody has anything. Save my bacon, and then kind of go from there. Realistically, bit of a standstill. But a couple of wins, most losses, story of my life, snafu. But I want to do it right, and if it takes a few more days to make it 100% correct, that's what we're going to do. So thank you very much for watching. That's really it for today. I'm going to do a bunch of cleaning. We can actually work on some interior stuff maybe. I don't know what we're going to do. I'm talking up my ass at this point because I'm frustrated. But make sure you leave a comment below. Do me a huge favor, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and watch these stupid videos. Because those little ads you watch, which I know are a hassle, but I really do appreciate it, is paying for this junk. Because I can't afford it. All right, well, see you in a couple days. Hopefully we got parts. Bye.